Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time out to join Chris and I today. We're really excited to go through today's topic, which is to personalize and visually enhance users' experience with iFormBuilder. And that's really just almost beautifying the client a little bit more, making it a little bit more personal.
Okay, thanks, Barrett. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let me show my screen and start. I'll see how I do bouncing back and forth here between the keynote and the presentation. So thanks a lot. I'm excited about doing this. This is the Personalize and Visually Enhance User Experience Part 2. Unfortunately, we were unable to record it last time, so hopefully it'll all work well today, and hopefully you'll get something out of this. So as Barrett said, you can speak by typing in questions, and so Barrett will jump in and point me in the right direction when questions pop up. So I'm gonna start by going through. So yeah, so I have a passion for user interface and kind of trying to make things pretty. And we're a very functional platform, but there's no reason things can't be pretty and continue to get pretty. So one thing I also would like from everyone on the call to, we do go to our support page, and any features that you see that are missing or that you think would be great to add, please do add them. We're driven by the customer, so whatever, the more people that say, hey, this would be great to have this, that'll be excellent if you could do that as well. So initially I'm going to go through, if you see the topics on the left, we're going to start from the client and work our way up to the database. So by the client, we mean the app and the ability to customize the application. So we're going to go through, I'm going to jump out of the I'm going to be jumping back and forth from the presentation into the real environment. So we want to go through initially setting the baseline color, some of the basic things, the ability to add a custom background, changing label fonts, changing label font and font size. So, and also adding custom help. So on each of these pages and in what you will get at the end, there's going to be these clickable links on many of the pages. And I'll just sneak ahead a little bit, you'll see anything that's underlined is going to be clickable. And I'm trying to really point you in the direction of where you can find this information. And obviously I'm going to go through it visually as well. So I'm just going to escape out of this side and sneak this down here. So I think the one thing I want to quickly try to do here, and let me just, here's my iPad mini that I'm going to use today. And basically I built 3 forms to kind of give you a feel for some variations, and this is all on one profile. So I'm coming into this part of this assuming this is all the things you can do independent if you have a dedicated database or not. So even with a free account, all the things that you're going to see here are the things that you can do. So in the end, we're going to walk through these forms and use these forms as a reference as we go through. So the first thing we do when you log in, and again, we'll get into the customization of this client as we go along here. But when I go into my company profile and the company info, so you have to be a company admin to have access to this. This is where you get into the details of the ability to customize your client, meaning your app. So this, I will point out if anything doesn't work on Android, but everything I'm going to talk about is Android and iOS specific. So what you'll see is in the client customization area, you can hit the edit company info. And once you're in there, you're going to be able to edit all the information. I also wanted to make a quick shout out to Manatee Works. That's who they're the ones that provide our software for the great barcode scanning, and they're a partner, so we're customizing their demo forms. So the first thing you do is you can add custom title, which is the title of the you'll see on every page. So this is the title of all your forms. So this is not at a form level, this is at all the forms for that particular profile, and if you have a free account for that particular production account. So a custom splash link, this is something that used to exist. We used to have 2 flash screens pop up when you started the app. One was a real quick loading screen basically, and then the background image stayed until you hit a select button. I mean, that's been updated a little bit since now. So the splash link, and there's lots of helpful tooltips on each one of these, is actually good for the kiosk application. So the splash link will pop up, and that's where you do the kiosk, but it's not at all related anymore to the iForm client. So the custom help link, this is where you're going to add custom help. So by default, it goes to our FAQ page. So I'm pointing this to ManateeWorks support page. This can also be, if it's an HTML with all the CSS local, it will be local on the device. But if I'm pointing to a URL outside, it's not going to, it's going to actually be pointing to a website.
So Chris,
then this is where we can put a custom background link.
If you could, someone was wondering, where do you see that custom help link in the app?
So in the app, so I'll see if I'll pop back up, see how nice reflector is today. Let me see. I might be. Do I have a trick, Barrett, to get this to pop up? Let me see. Maybe.
There shouldn't be a trick, but if you just move forward, if you
I know.
right-click and you show and hide, it should work.
Yep. So here is the question mark here, which I'm going to collect right now, is going to the help, and you'll see it's populating the ManateeWorks help page. So this is the help here. It is not the help from the app page. So if you go to the settings, and you're going to see contact iFormBuilder, these are for people that aren't on a white label. These are always defined. When you have a white label app that I'm going to walk through, these can be pointed to your own contact community support. You can add different areas there. But again, the help is not related to this. Again, it's related to this, and you see it just once it loads up. And again, if it's a local URL, just like we do on HTML, just like we support PDF, movies, and local and HTML files that are self-contained, it will live locally on the device. So it'll have. So it's a good idea to build your own FAQ. It's kind of self-withstanding HTML, and that will be there for all times. So I'll go hide this over here. So then the background link is the color that you see. Actually, it's good to have this. I think I'll go with this view for a while here. So the background link is the background color, and I'm actually this has to point to a URL. So this is actually simply the same thing as the HTTPS. This has to point to a URL that is public. So if I point this to anything that is a public URL, it'll with a .jpeg.png link, it will populate locally. And custom background link too, again, this is something that's really only for the kiosk application. I think we should probably set up a kiosk branding session on its own, because it really is involved in what all you can do with kiosk. But so again, each of these will tell you what you can do, and again, the help link that I have sent there also. So the custom done submit link, this is the button that you see on the page. So when I'm in a form, I'll just do a sneak peek into the form that we're going to go through. And we used to allow you to put images in, but that has actually been outdated since iForm 5, where we leave it there to support those users. So this really is all about enabling button color. So the button here will allow you to put the button text color. Right now it's black, and let's change it. So next time I sync, I'll sync while we're talking about some other stuff. I'll change it to something that stands out, like we'll just make it bright red. And then the custom base color is what you see all around the Boxworks capture here. This green on the home page. This is the green that you see here. And by default, whatever you name the custom base color at, it will also, the values of the iForm folder will take that value. So I didn't mess with the branding of this, but as you see, I did mess with the other, and we'll go into that in a bit here. So the base color supports all of these things. It doesn't support anything other than the general background color and the icons, the form customization. So it gives you that default color for scheme. And then the base text color this is actually for the text that's up here in the screen and down here, so you can actually control that. And then also the custom label shadow, I really have yet to make. I mean, if it's really bad, it looks bad, but it's really not very impactful. It's basically the shadow color on the text label, so you can kind of make things look goofy. It's actually a feature that we've had in for a long time, but it's never been necessarily anything that's, I would say, is overly helpful for you. And the other things here, these are just some things that are not necessarily, these are not related to branding, but you can look these up and they're in the link that I sent you. So once you've captured this, I'm going to save this. So now my button color text is going to be red all over when I do a sync. And then you can see what you've done, and it's stored here locally in the device. So, or on the screen. So now you've seen that, and then so also the base. We're going to go take a look quickly at what you can do about the font size and the fonts on the device. And this is actually a device setting. So if you want to change the font labels, and what I'll do is I'll peek in here at one of the simple form here. You'll see the. All right, so I don't know if you saw what I did here, but we're talking about the default font. And so where that lives is when you go to your settings and you scroll down, and I think I'm using the iForm client here for this customization. So when I find my iForm app, in each one of your apps, obviously, you may or may not know some of the things you see. Some of these are actually new to me since iOS 9. But when you get into the section here, the synchronization section, these are all the things in the synchronization area are related to, not to graphics, but how the app reacts. Picture size could be something that relates to your graphics, if it's especially how you want that to be presented in your email view. But down here is really what I wanted to chat about, was the label font type and the font size. And I'm a big lover of Helvetica Neue. So I'm going to change it to Helvetica Neue, and there is a place, if you do a little searching, actually we should probably find the link for it and post it on our help desk. They give you all these. I mean, the one thing I don't like is they don't give you that preview. I wish each of these was written in the font that it was, so you could tell what it looks like, but that is listed. If you look up iOS default fonts, that's what we're leveraging. So I'm going to change to Helvetica Neue, which is a little bit, I think, a little bit sexier, and the label font size. Whoop. Out of here. And the label font size, I'm going to bump it up to 24. And so this is again on a per device basis. That's something maybe people are asking for. Set default fonts with the app, but this is on a per device basis. So if your project's doing something you really want a certain font, now that's all I have to do there, and I'm going to bounce right back into iForm, and you'll see that actually it made a little update there. I'm probably gonna have a red button now, but you're gonna see how much bigger the font size is. So, for some fun stuff, the Comic Sans, stuff like that is all there. And it does not affect the text inside, but it does affect the labels. And you see my button now is a red done button. And I really want the push for this, at least to control color of this. So the more of you that yell and say, we want to be able to change the color of the done button area and maybe control the width, I'd appreciate that, because it really is done by what the needs are of the user. So I really would appreciate that. that maybe we can send a little link there, Barrett, that's sneaky, to have everybody say we want to be able to control the color of the done button. So anyway, that's basically. I think I've gone through everything on that slide. Let's jump back into the next page of this before we come out. So change the law font, custom help. I think I hit everything in that area. And again, this link is clickable. So the next part, we're going to talk about form customization, which is a really cool thing since we added the new the new folder interface, or updated folders. Gives you a lot of control. And we're also going to talk about changing the font and font size. Actually, we hit that already. Adding your own icons to form, which is something that kills me when I don't see a icon on a form. and then understanding what page type info is. So I'm going to sneak back out now, and we're going to go back to the form branding, which is, so again, this is the idea of what's going on. How did I make all these different colors? One thing that's really neat, if you see this when I click the info button, this is a pretty cool thing that's been added now. Whatever you put in the description is going to show here, and I can make this, I think I can make this thing a little bit bigger for you. So whatever you put in the description of the form, and I'll point that out, it will go here. And this is the first place I would go if people are having issues with their forms, because it shows us the latest version. And I'll show you another little trick I did. When you click the version, all these things are in by default. You actually control this. And then I added these two fields. These are custom fields with the table name, because it's not helpful for me to know the table, what the label is. I really want to know what the table name is if I can go to look at it. But this is the first place I would say to look. But people say, hey, are you on the same version? And so I just made some interesting additions here, and that's called versioning. So I'm going to bounce out of here. I'm going to go take a look at what's going on here, and I'll try to let us watch both. So when I go into my forms, and this is at a per form level. So again, like I said, the base, whatever base color you pick, everything's going to have that by default. But the things we can do here is, one, I'm just using the default for this, which is the color of, we can control the color here, we can control the color of this, actually the color of the info, you can see this one's black. And I can actually do a border around this. So in this one I'm showing that I put in a whole border. So I'm going to show you where you can do that. So let's look at the first thing of how I did this thing with the additional information here. So I'm going to go into my event lead capture form. And there's a whole lot of interesting things going on, and I'm kind of taking some, we'll walk through these in a while, so disregard that screen. But what we do is when we go here, the first thing I want to say is one about the, giving your form an icon. So we have all these icons here that you can just use, but any URL will work. So in this case, I have a URL that just found on the web to use for this particular form that is the box, is the Manatee Works icon.
So
but if I wanted to change it, yeah, go ahead.
Someone has a question about that URL. Does it have to be a public URL or could it be a private URL?
It does have to be a public URL. I don't see why this shouldn't be able to work with Box. If you have your Box account, you might be able to leverage that, because the Box account is going to a private URL when you link that, and I'm going to show you about how we do those images. But I've never tried that with a Box URL. Like you see here, and I'll talk through this, the labels icon. I've linked my account to Box for my icons. But yeah, so if this is a private URL, it does have to be a public URL. So we're hoping a icon is not proprietary, and there's a way to put it on a public URL. I mean, I can put it on Dropbox and Google Drive, something like that. But it does, and it does scale it. So actually, I like to go a little bit bigger. You see the one I'm using. I can actually pop this link in to show you where this came from quick. So I just did a Google search, and this is the link. So this is how big it is. It scales it. So I wouldn't say use a 1024 by 1024 image, but it's fine to use a 300 or a 400 by 400. It's going to look better when it scales down. And that's one of the biggest issues people have, is using a URL that's behind a firewall or something like that. But anything's here, anything you put here can be done. So then I'm just going to show you what this is, the reference ID 3. And again, the link is in the keynote that was sent out to take you to the right place to talk through this. But what this is doing is I'm doing form info custom property list, and I put these I have these links set up here so we can just jump right in there. How do I customize the form menu? So this URL, this link in our help desk is really helpful. It goes through all the things you can do. and all the things you can talk about, and then how you can do all the changes here to the form list. So what I added, these are the things that are there by default, but you can say, you can define these and get rid of whatever you want by using this form info property list. And then again, in the form info custom property list, these are these custom fields. That's where I added the table name, which is the event lead capture, because I like to know the table name of the form that I'm dealing with. And also, I just, this is you know, I'm going to be at BoxWorks next week, but I just thought I'd make this for an event BoxWorks. So, and again, since this is at a form level, like you can have these defined. So this is our BoxWorks 2015, you know, form. If you do a duplicate, but having these fields in there, it's really helpful you to go back and look at them. So that's what reference ID 3 does. It controls how much is shown in this list. Version's always going to show, but then once you get to this page, you can control what's shown here and create whatever you want to create here to add to that, which is a pretty cool thing. Really good for support. And now I'm going to look through what, and so you see reference ID 5, as they talk about on this page, which is all the cool things you can do to the form. You can control each one of the icons based on, you know, a different color scheme for the icons as well as the colors here. And I'm going to peek in to show how we did that. So I'm going to go back to my form builder and let's look at the Go Panache one, which is what I used in the older last time I did this event. So again, in Go Panache, again we go into here and you'll see now I'm referencing reference ID 5, and I know this is really hard to see, but the one thing that's really different about this is I added a border color. So that's where you see that this went all the way around. So I could have everything be there and just put a border around one of these if that's the object. And obviously, if you don't know, you can decide how you sort the sort order of forms and all those things. That's all possible. So deciding how you sort forms
so Chris,
might relate to how you design them here. So yeah, this goes through, and what I'm doing is I added border color, the info bar color, which is this bar down here. And again, it's really easy to see what all these things are and how this looks, and it gives you a good starting example. Right here, it gives you a good starting example that's very similar to what I did. But this is each one of these, and you just separate. If you're doing multiple, you just separate with a semicolon and add. You just have to add a hex value for the color, so a 6-digit hex value with the pound sign. So that's how you go and you do these. So this one did border color, and you'll see if I'll jump quickly into the other form, which is the About Cognex. And in here, when you look at this one, I did add form branding, but I just changed things around a little bit. I made sure the color was black for the text around About Cognex. So you can control every element of this box to your own branding. And again, please don't even specifically subforms, because I think, you know, not using a form label, even if it's a subform, you're just not going to have that image, and that imagery is really powerful to kind of help you know. And you'll see how I use imagery in the next section here. So let me quickly see if I missed anything in this section. And adding your own icons of forms. Oh, page type info. So I just want to tell you this because this is interesting for branding, because it might be more about the ability to show things, and particularly in the email report, which I'll kind of go through. So it depends, you know, how you want an email. So let's say for this thing, I mean, you know, we're not trying to be the event lead capture person. We're way beyond that, but this is a good example to show the type of things you can do. So typically, if you use a label or an image label, the label itself does not go to the form if you just have a simple form. So that's a different reference ID, which I'll talk about too. Page type info means that it does not create a record. So what I did to this About Cognex is just a form that is simply showing some information. I'm linking to Cognex Vision, and this is interesting because I actually linked it to a Google Drive, and I never did that before, so it's kind of interesting. You can make a Google Drive link be shared, and allowing people to download it. So if I click the download, it'll download there. So all I'm doing is giving some information on this page. So Data Man Guides is another PDF about Cognex, and they actually purchased ManateeWorks. So ManateeWorks is working with Cognex now. That's why you see this co-branding. But when I say done, it goes right back. It didn't create a record. There's nothing there. So page type info. So I'll look at this form. I'm in the Cognex form. That's this reference ID here, right? Page type info means that it's informational only. So it's really helpful a lot of times for subforms and things where, you know, if you're just going into something like that, if you didn't have this in there, it would create a record when I left that form, even though there was nothing in it. So I really like using this to just go to a page that might have some image labels, using it for informational purposes like learn more, where you're really not capturing data, but you're sharing data or sharing imagery. It's a great little reference ID. And we'll be going into some really interesting, some cool reference IDs that I use a lot for branding and those types of things. So let's go to next page of this. Any questions in that section, or are we pretty good to go?
We are good to go right now. Thank you.
All right. So now we are going to using images in forms. Okay. So adding labels and image labels to forms. This does work cross-platform. This image on the right is showing you this is, we work with Sustainable Harvest quite a bit, and I personally love going to their coffee events, and we've worked with them and did like kind of a little event app, but you know, imagery was a big part of an event app like that. So this is just simply an image label, and we're going to talk about those, and that does work on iOS and Android. Image option list, image selects, and then this display field. Using display field this works everywhere, but the image option list and image selects is currently only supported on iOS. It is a feature that's in the pipeline. I know they're working on it, and I asked before I got this call about when we might see that. There's not a definitive timeline, but it's one of those things. The more you yell, but you'll see on Android things just keep working. It doesn't break anything, but the image option list and the image selects don't work, and I'll walk through those in a second in this section. So again, image labels. What you're going to see an image label in all of the forms here as I bounce through them. So this is an image label up here, the ManateeWorks. I have an image label, and again, this is when you are playing with images on things, you do have to consider what your end device is. I mean, you can use images on they work on iPhone and iPad, but you obviously have different flexibility with the screen size for iPad and making things work completely. So this picture will scale and look good on an iPhone. It's 800 pixels wide, just so you know. So I'm using some image labels. I think that's the only image label I have on this page. When I go back to the Cognex again, I'm using an image label here. And when I go to the Go Panache, I'm using, this is an image label here. It's also a cool way, I mean, this is all one image, but sometimes it's nice to use an image label for a nicer div than our default div tag. And one of the cool things that a customer did with this, a customer in the UK, I think Groundwork UK did it, they were doing water, they work for a lot of water companies, and they were actually doing like a survey about how much water you waste. And the cool thing was they had an image label that basically was maybe 20 images, and based on your score, it was like a kid in a tub and the water was going over the tub based on their score, like if they're leaving the water on while they're brushing their teeth. But it's a really innovative way to use image labels for kind of real-time feedback. So that's just something to think about. So how do these image labels get created? So since I'm in Cognex, I'll just go right to the first. So I have this Cognex header. And I guess before all this, to do image labels, to do the option list, you do have to define where your image labels are going to come from. And there's a couple places where you can do that. So initially, this is the label icons URL. So what I have done is I went into my the company info. And this doesn't have to be through one of our media storage options. I've used, my personal account for a while. I've used, if you have your own folder, it does have to be public access and if it's not connected through the media storage. But this is where you set up your media configuration. And so we integrate right now with Box, Dropbox, and iFormBuilder. So when I clicked on this, I had my basically this is if I want to do media storage, I have that. That's where I'm going to keep all the media that I capture. Meaning that if you take photos, signatures, do annotations, they're all going to be stored in Box instead of the iFormBuilder cloud, which is the default to be stored in our cloud files. But there's two links here. One is for media and one is for images. And I've connected this for my images. And so quickly to look in my the Box account quick, I have it. So when you'll see in my Box account, I have this is where I've stored this for this event, the branding graphics. So I created a folder called branding graphics. Within that, I'm using Manatee branding. And then this is where you're seeing a lot of these images that I'm using. And you'll see where these other image labels pop up. And then I made option lists because you do define a different URL when you do options. So we'll look at that. So anyway, I'm storing all my media here, and as soon as I put a file in here, it's usable in the form. So to quickly jump back and try not to lose you, let me just go to the one we're looking at. So we're looking at this image label here, and we go to my forms, form builder. So simply you define the label, and this is what's important, that you have to name your images the same name, exact name as the data column name, and they'll just exist. They'll just pop up if you made an image called cognex_header, and it's a PNG file. It'll pop up and become that image label. So that's all you have to do for image labels. It's not gonna show anything if you don't put an image label there. But so when I look here and I jump back into my Box account, I did have it. Here's my Manatee branding, and here's my cognex header.png. So that's where it's pulling that file from. And once it is pulled down, it is local. It's gonna recheck to make sure it's the same one, because if you change an image with the same name, it will check. But once it's checked, it's local on the device even when you're offline. So that's simply how you can create the image labels. I do want to show something that I did with the other form, which is when I go to my BoxWorks form, one of the things we're doing down here is we're going in and I'm saying, here's the supported symbologies, and I can learn more. So these are all the symbologies, and I'm going to the option labels next here. So you see I put a label with each one of these. So yes, each one of these has to be exactly named as each one of the elements here, but when I select, in this case I'm using another image label to do Aztec code, select that, and it's giving them the Manatee Works. This is actually an image. If I pick, and I decided to just show you how an image can be used for each one of these. If I pick, I think the other one is data matrix, it's going to show the data matrix. So it's a quick way for giving you quick feedback on that. And within each one of these, I also did add a learn more, which is just clicking the learn more, and that takes me to, that's just a URL link. But just a couple ways to leverage, media and imagery within the form. So now let's talk about the option list thing. So let's look at this was an interesting one, just some ideas I wanted to put together and share. One way of, right now we can't not let you select manufacturing, but it's a way, there's multiple topics here, and it's a way to segment an option list and give it a little bit of flavor to go through places. And I don't know how many of you have dealt with the big option lists like this, but this is a feature that's been great, this new fuzzy search. So if I'm a trucking guy, I'm just going to just start typing TR, and trucking's right there, and I select that. So that's one way to use option lists. I'm going to go down and show you, I like this, what social networks do you use? So we're going to look at how this one was built. So this is just a simple option list. Did want to say, based on every one you touch, it's going to send a URL, but actually I do have that in a form to show you how that happens. But so this is just a simple option list here. So this is the BoxWorks lead capture app. So let me just load that. the event lead capture. So now we're going to scroll down to the social networks. What social networks do you use? So just the same, a typical multi-select, when you go to your input properties, it's a multi-select. My option list, here's my options. I'm pointing to my social network option list. Nothing special here. This is where the link is, the icon's URL. And so this icon's URL is where you're going to point where the directory is. And it has some nice tips for here. If you're using this with an option list or a pick list, you should go for a 45 by 45 pixel size. And then this allows me to segment too. When you're doing a lot of these, and you can reuse these, if you build, Manatee branding option lists in this case, but you can do this, you actually can do a new link for each option list. So if it's a reusable option list, you might want to put this in here, that people can use it with the imagery multiple times. So maybe you have a Manatee branding option list / common that you're going to use for very common option lists, and you're going to put something, maybe segment stuff that's just going to be noise for like what I did in that other form where I put in the manufacturing that segmented list. So anyway, you just point, same thing as we did before. I'm connected to Box, and that's once I have my baseline Box integration. I just added an option list folder. So in that folder, I need to make sure that when I look at the advanced, that every one of my images matches the key value name. And again, this is documented in the link I sent. So Facebook _round.png, Google plus round.png. But that's obviously why you'd also want to make this in the same place. So something simple, something like this that you can reuse, it would be nice for you to have a common folder. So when I go in here, I'm going to go to my branding. You'll see my Manatee branding. This is my Box account, option lists, and you'll see this is all those coda bars we were looking at. And down here is my Facebook round, Flickr, Google. I even have extra ones in there in case I decide to use them at some point. And it goes to page 2. So that's every one of these exactly matches the name of this except.png. And it's really helpful. I mean, I'm showing a lead capture, but it's been unbelievable with a lot of environmental engineers showing different animal bird types in planting, different types of plants. I mean, the one cool thing is, I think with Lamana banana, I think there's 10 different stages of a banana, like if it's just green, speckled, multi-speckled, black, black, brown, like all those things just help you have less subjectivity in your forms. So that's a cool thing with that. So let me just show now what we have in this form. I'll close out of here. We also have, I don't know if you saw it in the form, but we said, send me a downlink app for, and this is this right here. Let me bring it in front. So this is how a select looks. And you have a lot more flexibility. A select can be up to 180 pixels wide by, I believe, 45. So in this place, this is a single select though. You can't multi-select from here, but I say, App Store, Google Play, Windows Store, and BlackBerry World, which I didn't know existed still.
So one question someone had about
this is what a select image label.
Chris, is with the select, and this is actually a question I get a lot during Kickstarts, but people are wondering about if you can just have an image on a select, do you have to have the text?
You have to have something. That's not a feature that we shouldn't be able to support. That this actually could be an icon. The icon could be a transparent thing, a transparent 45 by 45 image. So I think that could be a hack to try.
So that's probably another one of those things that we want to make sure that we vote for our features to get that
right.
on. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I wanted to walk through some of these reference IDs now before we jump into they're related to the email, and I think that's the next on the list. But is there any other questions at this point?
Nope. I think we're ready to see
and one thing I didn't show, like.
I was just gonna say, I think we're ready to see the reference IDs and then the email whenever you're ready.
Yep. Excellent. And yes, and you can put an image. I mean, you have to try. I think they work well with text, but you can add an image in a text element or into the elements here. And that's written up in the link I sent. You really have to play with it and find something that works, but I kind of don't think it's worth the effort to put it in the label size. So is there anything else interesting to show on this right now? I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is, let me just bounce right back, and I know I have to be refreshed on the name, what we call these labels. And actually, I'll show this form in action real quick, because so I made some name tags. So I could just kind of walk through this form quick, and I'll make a record so we can look at what the email looks like, and then you'll see kind of what shows up in the email report. So I'm going to come into it fresh. We're assuming I'm going to show, and I happen to know the barcode scannings of the people there. So it populated a whole bunch of information that you didn't see. And I did mess this up. So actually, this is a little bit, I needed a space here. But what this is doing is actually the person's name is Or Dashevsky. And it says, please confirm your email address Or. So this is another, I mean, I kind of call it, image, or, I kind of call it a little bit sexing up, making the forms a little bit sexier, because you're adding interaction to it. So this is a dynamic label that's happening here. So just to show you that, and I can probably just, so when I scan that, I have all this information I'm capturing. I hid all this information. And in addition to hiding it, you're going to see this reference ID. This is element skip email PDF. And if I knew how to put this into a chat, I don't know where the chat is. I'd share it with you. How do I see chat? There, polls, hands off, chat. Here we go. Let me see.
I was going to say, I can do it for you. You don't have to.
I found it. Okay. So this is called element skip email PDF. And this was, I think, put in for me because we did a bunch of stuff with some folks like Old Navy and Gap, where it was really about the email was really informational. They didn't want to share any text they gathered. They just wanted to share some new information. So this is allowing us to, it's not going to show in your emails or the PDFs you generate, but it will show on your back end, all the data that's captured. So what I did there when I scanned this, I'm actually capturing the first name, the last name, all this information here. And this one right here, this is the only one I'm showing. Please confirm your email address. And what I did in this to do put the or thing in there. So this is the dynamic label. So this is kind of really cool to use both for, referencing a person's name. It's obviously more interactive when you kind of recall their name, but you can pull any value that's been captured and put it in the form. So, scenario is, you said you're 23 years old, what's your birthday? And, we can even use logic to check that. But you can do some really cool things with dynamic label. So the dynamic label does not pass to the backend. It's going to pass whatever label is in this, the common label that says, please confirm your email address. But the dynamic label overwrites the label on the device for the interim.
So Chris, we do have a question coming in from Tim.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I just missed how you hid the other controls there. I wasn't sure if I missed something there or whether the...
Okay, so the way so there's two things going on. The one is the conditional value of false. It's still populating that information from my barcode scan, but it's not showing. So false is how you hide the element. And reference ID element skip report or skip email /PDF this is skipping it from the email that gets generated. So I'm hiding it both on the device, as you see here. When I scan, the only thing you see, all this information is being populated, and you'll see that in the back end when I do a look.
Yep.
All this information is being captured from this barcode, but I'm only asking them to confirm the email address because that's really all I care about at the end of the day. I mean, in the interaction with that person. As long as I have a good email, I'm good.
Excellent, thank you.
So that's using that reference ID. So then now I'm going to do, this is kind of cool, and you're probably saying, what's going on here? So this is actually a little bit of a flip between using dynamic value to put a readable title in a label if you choose to, and then how it goes to the form, to the printout. You can actually now use you can use CSS and HTML to do that. So it's pretty cool to see that I'm putting all this in, and I'll show you what that translates to in the back end. But I'm I don't really care about this. All I'm saying, hey, thanks for visiting. Here's our email, here's our web link. I'm looking forward to chat with you. So this is actually, again, I'm using a lot of false conditional values here, so it's simply not showing. But because this is simply a label, and labels would never used to show on the output, the reference ID for this is element report. So we kind of flip the whole thing around. And if I wanted this to be, if I actually wanted to say this in the form, I would simply go to my smart controls and back down to the dynamic label and actually just write this without all the HTML and the stuff going on. So I'll show you what this translates to, and I have a really good one with the the Go Panache one, but I think that's the only one I did this with on the BoxWorks. So again, jumping back here, you see nothing in the, you don't see that element at all. You see my image label, and I go right into the form. Then I jump into, what app you like, what symbologies, yada yada. Select some networks, capture some audio notes, and I'm going to say done. And now I'm syncing this up to the cloud, and then we'll look at the Manage tab quick so you can see what it looks like from this view. Oh, I made the other change, so it's taking a second here. And while that's doing, I want to show you what I did have it here. Oh, this is, nope, that's not it. I was looking for my Go Panache sample, which I don't see right now. So we'll take a look at that. I'll pull that one up. And I do think that there is with Box, because I think because it is secure, it does take a bit longer to do my syncing. This is actually pulling the form down, making a change on it because it's going through. And I do have an obsessive amount of image labels, and I use Box in this scenario just since BoxWorks was next weekend. I want to remind people if anybody's going to be in San Francisco, I'll be there and happy to catch up. So now I uploaded that record, and when I go to my Manage view, you'll take a look at what this thing looks like. I'll look at that record. And so we're going to get in the email next here to see what all happened here. But you'll see that this, thank you for visiting ManateeWorks booth. This is that code that I put in the chat. So I actually did some wild things. I made it a big size, and this is actually just taking up, it's just an alternate color, right? It's just another element in that form, but it actually becomes a pretty interactive piece to throw these things in there and allow that to be, a lot more robust. And to show you kind of a little bit more, I'll get the Go Panache one because that one's a little more detail. So it's this is gonna have the branding of Manatee, but you'll see what I did in this one, and we'll pop that form up so we can look at them at the same time. So what's going on here is in the form, here's the sign up for a Go Panache newsletter. This is actually on the form itself. And when I scroll down here, you'll see I'm doing the same thing. I'm hiding a whole bunch of stuff because this is really for an output for the user. So, thanks for visiting the booth is really the same kind of code I'm using the other one. And then that's the first, that's actually in the first row of the form. And then the second row goes div style display table. So actually I created a little table in here with its own little enclosure for download the iTunes app from the App Store. So it's kind of cool because what I wanted to do, I kept doing interesting things in the Manatee app, but was based on what version of app you wanted it. This would only show, you can still do all the logic. So this would show, hey, if you pick the Google Play, it says, download the Manatee app from Google Play. Download the app. So, and what I've also done here is I've added the follow Go Panache on Google Plus. So really, you can do this. You don't have to get so elaborate, but if you want to bold, just simply bold the text on a specific element, you can do all that within the form now, which is kind of cool. So you're seeing all these. This is all the things I'm doing, and I have the link, and I have pre-populated with the URL. So if you see, here's the information. I'll send this one because this one will be helpful. This is the same one for all those. Again, if I'm not showing it at all, it doesn't matter what I do to it. But this label actually, and you can go a little crazy. I'm sure we're going to crash some stuff. The more HTML and CSS we put in it, but you can do some really interesting things if at the end you just want to give some feedback to the person. I think the mix of this CSS and now the dynamic URL, so this dynamic value, I'm populating the Facebook Go Panache site into this. I made it false so it doesn't show in the form. And I made a dynamic label that says follow Go Panache on Facebook. And so I kind of made this just a pre-populated form. And I think I probably made it read-only as well. So they could just, as you're cleaning the form, you're reminded of that they have a Facebook page. These are all the references IDs I'm showing, and I spent a lot of time, all the stuff I captured, I'm skipping it all from the email so they get something like this. But let's go in and go look at the email. I think this will be helpful for you. So again, you go to your company info page and you go to the email customization. And when I say edit email, so the nice thing about this is you don't have to store these images anywhere. And so we're looking at the result. So what we did is the first thing we do is ask you for browsing for a logo. So this is my logo. So you simply upload the file. And again, it says here, don't go crazy. You shouldn't have an image over 1 megabyte. And 800 pixels in width is important. So that is what the image pops in. And it usually is pumped up, so you're going to see, I'm going to just take this out here. The nice thing too on this, it dynamically updates as you edit it. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to say update text. You'll see what happens. It jumped down. And if I don't have the background color, let's say I have the background color of this is red. This is the background of the image. And the reason I moved this down, and I think you can see it better if I do the body background. Typically when you come in, everything's gray. And so I brought this image in. Filler is something I don't use. I just wanted to show it. Actually, I guess I'll just start there, sorry. So I typically logo line center. Additional CSS, I put in the, so again, we go in, I'm putting margin bottom because that space I showed you, that 15 pixels, and this is typically what it takes to bring it down to the line of the parent form. And then this filler is just what's up here, but you can't put any CSS. So I have used this before, just putting like a phone number with some of the sheriff departments. They like to see, sheriff and the sheriff's name and maybe a phone number. But this is what's considered the filler. So I just put this in here to show you that you can put a div and you can update some stuff. When the filler's gone, it's gone. And so as you see this, it doesn't look like there's a border. This is all square, but there actually is a border out here that is white. So this is the outermost background. So if I change this to a green, you'll see this page will have everything will be green behind it. So we default it typically to white or light gray. I like to make it white because usually the page is white, so you lose it. But that's just something that's what outermost background controls. So I'll go back and make it white. And then we control the cell width. This is the control of how far the forms, the cells are from across from each other. So it's not it'll update. And then table background. So this is the default table background is almost always white. And then you can control your alternate background, odd row. So this is the odd row here. And this is the font color. So again, if I want this font color to match, let's make the font color match the background. So I'll put that in there. And now you see the font's changed. And actually, I made the font, and you control the font for also for hyperlinks. What type of font? We only give you 3, but then also font size. So this is really where you can control this, and you have a lot of flexibility to make things look good. I think one of the things, just so I want to point out, you can go through all this obviously. The parent form, if you want to have a border around the parent form and around the edges of these things, I do border with 0, so there's no border. But if I don't know if you can see it does 2, that's what that's going to do. And there's lots of ways to be creative here. I mean, this is, a lot of times we're building more interesting emails, but I really wanted to show you that it's possible to do some cool emails even with our out-of-the-box, emailing updates. Record ID is another one. So I'm not showing record ID because this is kind of a marketing form. a marketing email. The record ID exists, but if I put this in here, it's going to show the record ID. And one trick, if you don't want to show parent form, let's say you don't want to show this parent form, I would just, you can make this text be the exact same color as your background color if you want to hide it. So sometimes, like in this, I don't think it looks very good saying BoxWorks lead capture. It should just, I'd rather just make that all match the same color. So if I make the font color of the parent form the same color, obviously it disappears. And the same thing with record ID. If you like the spacing the record ID gives you, just make the font the same color, and no one will ever know the difference. So it'll disappear on you. So this is kind of all the things you can do here. Footer's another fun place to play. Again, you can't edit this information unless you're a server, unless you have a dedicated database. If you have a dedicated database, you can actually configure your own SMTP where emails come from, and you can also have any of this say what you want it to say. So, but you do have some flexibility in the footer, which is pretty fun, and that's really, you know, the main things from the email side that I wanted to show. I want to see if I missed anything else. So we went through the display, field, and element report, and now email customization we've just gone through. Let me see if I missed anything what I wanted to share. Customize the email outputs. Nope, that's all good. So we'll jump into the dedicated database, and this is, again, I don't have a time to go through here, so we'll be done quickly, but I just kind of want to show you some cool examples, and also, again, like I said, it's pretty well documented, and just maybe I might have a pointer or two on how to do that. So again, so we've been working in this Cognex dedicated database. So I want to show you a couple others. Here's TrueForce, what they've done to their backend. And again, this is if you have anybody has the dedicated database. Here's Concern. So I just want to show a couple different backends, but Cognex, I kind of like this one because I put it together. So I'll just show you where you start customizing the dedicated database. So under server info, we're going to go and you're going to see all the information here. The first thing I'll mention is we just left email. Here's the email configuration. This is something else that I know is being worked on, but it's always a thing to me. You want to basically be able to define something other than just new record than that form name. That maybe there's a way for us, the subject is new record and we're allowed to share an element from a form. And I don't know the status of that, but I'm pretty sure it's being worked on it's a short-term feature that should be coming around, because I know a lot of people have asked that, because you're getting things coming in and you see new record, and I'm going to bravely take a peek if I can find my my Go Panache thing real fast. So never mind. So I mean, just the example, I think you can understand that you get a bunch of records with new record, and nothing to really identify that unique record other than the time it came in. So that's something in the subject. Whatever you put there is going to stay there. And we do have people that have done it, and we can help with that, where they're going through a third party before they mail, like going through Google or whatever it is to send the mail out through there. So that's just one of my things that I think it's worth shouting a little bit about. But it is coming, and that's going to be a really good thing for everybody. And this is the footer. Again, like I said, I'm going to just get rid of this. And I'm going to save that. So, and this is also where you set up your SMTP, but this is really, I can control things here and change what is in the footer and put whatever you want in that footer down here as well. And I actually believe this also will work with CSS. So that's the email alert, and then the custom color scheme. So we'll go through obviously you can tell this, I picked this one to show because it's so blatant of what we picked. But I'm not going to go through every element here, but some of the nice things are, the ability to change. You can't change the color of the tabs, but you can change the rollovers, the color. So if you see, this is actually, instead of it white, it's a light gray. That's the navigation tab, and the hover labels is the yellow, the Cognex yellow. So that's always a nice feature to do to give a little bit more customization and branding. But again, you'll see as we look into any of these fields as we were bouncing around that we've branded this with our own rollover colors, our own color scheme. So this is really where you can control the color scheme and kind of make it match with your branding in the overall color scheme. And then the portal branding is where you give the ability to do a lot more of the branding. And so the nice thing is all the images that come there with iFormBuilder are showing here, and you just simply have to create the exact same name and the exact same size image. So typically what I do is just, I'll view image, I'll just right click on it and I can save it. And that's the image I work off of to build my new image. So all I have to do is save it as content.png and then just save the same name and just upload it, and it's going to make the change.
The other
So
thing
that's
I
a really
want to
quick way
say,
to,
yeah,
go
the
ahead.
other thing I want to say is if you click the help desk link on the left-hand side, it'll bring you to the branding portal page, and there'll be the zip file on with all these images in it as well.
But just at least getting that header done is just helpful, just because you don't know. I mean, a lot of people sign up for these trial accounts, and you know you're in your account when you see a different branding. So that's very helpful. So these are all the features that you can do on the portal branding. One final thing I wanted to show on here was the custom links that you can create. So navigation tab. So within your navigation tab, within the company and the support tabs, you can add links. Remember, company only shows for company admins, but the support tab shows for everybody. So what you can do is simply put in if I want to edit the company or support link here, I just say edit navigation, and I'm going to add a row. I'm going to name it, Barrett Rocks, and I'm going to put the link update, and now under support, Barrett Rocks. So
that's a great name.
It is a great name. That's a great link. Everybody, that should be the default link. So that's kind of that, and then the help desk customization, where you link to for your web page. Again, this is all from this, where we're going from these pages. And once you have a dedicated database, a lot of times the support is going through internally first before it comes to us. So when we do the white label, so iOS and white label requirements are documented in detail. And there is a zip folder for each one of these that's going to say, here's all the things you require. But there is a link that makes the icons for you. There's some great things to let you do. You just put in your icons and it'll create the iOS and Android icons.
So Chris, while you're getting that, there's a question that came in, and it says, is CSS available in dynamic labels or only on label widgets?
Well, so CSS is only available when it goes outside of iFormBuilder, not within. It doesn't change anything in the form itself. So the CSS is affecting how it displays in your reports. And so this is that link I shared. This is just really cool. If I just put an image in here, it's gonna bake it, and it's gonna give you all the iOS and all the Android icons and see how they look. So it's a really cool tool, and I think they even give you all the imagery you need for putting a form icon together. So the things that are on our side in a white label, I mean the main features. Since we're talking about the white label, we've gotten to the white label side of things. I mean, you'll see here's some interesting options. I want to close this so you can just see that real quick splash image comes up and goes in. But the big features with having a white label is you'll see that in this we have you'll see that we'll have knowledge base. You control what is shown here. You obviously control your version of the app. But they're controlling when they take an update. So they're running on 7.5.1. So things aren't broke. They're supporting all the devices. You can choose when you have a white label. So I mean, there's really nothing rocket science about the white labeling. And it's just the one thing I always want to consider, because I don't know why this icon looks so bad. But if you see this Ecolab icon, I'll make it bigger. Is not matching like this. If you give them a square and they circle it out, your icons, what's going to be seen, and you need to make sure that you're going to, you want to represent yourself as it looks good. So you'll see that's what happened here with the Ecolab. It has a bit of an issue with not considering they went way too square here, and I had a black background, and it's not following the circles. So hopefully this was helpful. I don't think I missed anything. Did I do okay, Barrett? Did I cover it?
You definitely covered everything. For those of you who are, again, new to iFormBuilder or new to these webinars, this last slide or the last section of the PDF that we're going to share with you, again, these are clickable links. I want to thank you guys again for joining us today. And Chris, if you don't have anything else, thank you for taking your time out to present how to really enhance the iFormBuilder platform visually.